they're working on what they're doing, and again, to try to get what's needed. Now, I don't want you to take in this, and I don't want anyone to take in this, to think that the CAG has not been helpful, especially early on as we were going through a lot of things. I take no credit away from the recommendations, and many of them we agree with. Thought it was a great idea to have more independent folks on there. What we had started with was what was put into the consent decree. Great idea to look at some of the other things that have been raised. No disrespect on that at all. But that's what happens when you're in a relationship or a collaborative relationship. You both have ideas and you provide input. Some things you have perspective on that we don't. Other things we have perspective on that you don't. But that's the nature of working together. So some things are going to come from you all, some things are going to come from us. But that's normal in that regard. And so I don't want anybody on the CAG or anybody in the community to think that we are trying to underestimate the input that you guys have and the things that were suggested in the work that has gone on. Lots of credit goes to you. And so please don't take that or anything that's been said. Hang on a second, Fred. Please don't take that or anything that has been said to undermine that or underestimate that at all. What I said in terms of this particular process at the moment, very detailed, it's very tough, it's trying to go through with all the policies and procedures that have to do that. They're going to focus in on doing that and at the same time continue to do meetings with the community. We didn't start out with a quarterly meeting because there were lots more issues and lots more things that we needed to get together and we needed to do and talk about together early on in that. And now I'm saying we have to focus in on the SOC getting the priorities out, you guys providing feedback on that, and then moving forward in that process to get the RFP together. It's particularly tough. Sometimes it takes a long time to get together to make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are done.
And Craig, that was me that muted you. I apologize. I thought you were done with that thought. Then I just wanted to let Dr. Davis finish answering, but go ahead with the rest of your question.
Well, thank you, Susan, but you do know me better than that.
You paused too long.
I guess so, because you know why? Because I promised my CAG, my fellow CAG members, that I wouldn't get upset, and I don't want to get upset. But I'll tell you what, it's really easy to get upset from what I've heard tonight. But it's okay, I'm going to stay really calm, because I want the community to really appreciate that. Dr. Davis, I thank you for appreciating or respecting the fact that we brought up really, good ideas. I think we did. But the fact is, the reality is that your organization doesn't move things forward. Your organization is dragging their feet. And I can only speculate that you're dragging your feet because we haven't gotten reasons why. I mean, the CBC study, it's been 15 months. 15 months. It's a secondary data analysis. The analysis itself can be done in weeks, okay? So it can only be explained by this prolonged delay is one can rationalize it as you do not want to get
Absolutely
to the
not. Absolutely.
Let me finish there, please. And then you would then provide the SOC this insight so that they could formulate a goals and priorities that is in line with all the information. We discovered polonium. What is in the community? Okay, and the last thing I'm going to say, because I want the community to realize this, that your CAG is now being censured and minimized in their input into this. But something else critically important is happening, and that is Dr. Nordella, your most trusted advocate in the community, is being expelled from the SOC at the conclusion of this meeting or end of business today. And I don't know anybody in the community that doesn't want to hear from this man about his opinions. And he will be silenced at the end of the day today from your SOC, the only clinician with firsthand experience in dealing with what we dealt with. Community, I've worked really hard, as my fellow CAG members have, and I love them. They're fantastic people. We are being censured. And before we go to public comment, Susan, I want the podium. We're going to take a confidence vote amongst the CAG of what they think of the direction of the study. And if you do not give me that podium, that will be further evidence that you're trying to silence the opinion of this CAG.
So let me stop real quick. Real quick. No, not not censoring, not doing it. That is a mischaracterization of what's happening, and that's not what's happening. Period. Now, 13 of 15 members have signed the talk charter. We have sat and we've talked to Dr. Nadella about it, the reasons why things are there, understanding that there are certain things that we have to do for a process that's going to go into a process that's going to be a public solicitation. This is standard in terms of the group, what it's providing input on, and the process that is moving forward. That is not censoring. That is about making sure that the process is tight in terms of what it needs to be, so that when it goes out, and it's being seen by those members of the public who are going to apply for it, or those researchers, that they apply for it, but they don't have an unfair advantage in terms of it. It's not censored in any way. Same thing for you guys. Just because we started out doing more frequent meetings and we going to every quarter doesn't mean you're censored at all. Now, if you feel that way, that's different, but that's not what that intent is. That's not what that's doing. That is us shifting to do work that needs to be done so that this health study gets out and the proposal gets out when it needs to, and it's what it has within it, what it needs to have based on scientific input from the SOC.
Thanks, Dr. Davis. So I'd like to switch to the next agenda item and let Christina do a presentation on this, just where the study is right now, and then we'll continue with questions. So Christina, I'll turn it over to you. I think we can advance to through the next couple of slides. I think you had a
Thank you, Susan. Can everyone hear me?
yes.
You can hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so I'm the Research Development Manager of the Health Study. Thanks for having me today. And thank you, Dr. Davis, for going over the community engagement piece of this health study and what it will look like in the research solicitation phase of the health study. So I'm going to get a little further into the current phase that we're in, which is the research solicitation phase of the health study. I'm going to spend a little bit of time focusing on the programmatic elements of this phase, including the health study goals and priorities, which have already been mentioned, providing a little bit of information on that, how community members are going to be asked to provide feedback on that. I'll get into the research solicitation itself, provide a little bit of information about that, and then also the work with the Scientific Oversight Committee. So before I get started, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on what progress has already been made up to this point with the Scientific Oversight Committee. I've been their main point of contact on this health study, and I've been facilitating all of the meetings with this group up to this point. Initial onboarding calls for the Scientific Oversight Committee happened back in March 2019, and the SOC met 5 times over last year to discuss many topics, and those included cancer surveillance that was already mentioned today, Elisa Canyon waste bin sampling, collection, and testing, as well as the health study goals. So the SOC, when they were being brought on at the beginning of last year, during the first few meetings, they were provided with a wealth of information on the disaster, the response, and they had the opportunity to hear directly from community members about the impact of the disaster on residents in the surrounding communities, their concerns, and their hopes for the health study going forward. So the Scientific Oversight Committee has been really integral to the process of the health study up to this point, and they've advised on many important components of the health study. For example, the SOC charter, in addition to the choice of our research solicitation vehicle. So we're going to be putting out an RFP to solicit contractors and proposals from potential contractors for this health study and to run the health study. And the Scientific Oversight Committee has also advised on, as I've mentioned, environmental sampling that happened last year and testing of those environmental samples. In addition, last year, the Scientific Oversight Committee used all of the information that they were provided throughout the meetings and in between meetings, and drafted a goals and priorities document, which outlines the goals for the health study and priority areas of focus. And the public will have the chance to review this document and comment on it. I'll get a little bit more into that later on in this agenda item. But I just wanted to say that the SOC will continue to be an integral component of advancing the health study, especially in this research solicitation phase as we're developing the RFP, and they're going to be providing input on key components of that. So I'll get into now many of the different items that we're going to be spending time on during this phase of the health study. So first of all, I'll go over the goals and priorities, as this is something that's come up several times, and I'm sure you've heard about it already, potentially from either communications that we've put out or from potentially CAG members. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of information on what this is, what you can expect. So the Scientific Oversight Committee put together a draft document outlining the goals for the health study, as this is one of their key tasks that they've been tasked with for the health study, and then also priority areas of focus. And they did this with the information that they've been provided up to this point, and with all the community input that they've been provided up to this point. So we're hoping that once this goals and priorities document goes out for public comment, we'll get a lot of public comment on it, because this will help the Scientific Oversight Committee get a better sense of what matters most to the community that was impacted by this disaster. And that's the real purpose of doing this and having this public comment period, for the community, the broader community, to really have the opportunity to ensure that they're able to inform the Scientific Oversight Committee on what matters most as we're developing this research solicitation. So, as I said, feedback will be reviewed by the Scientific Oversight Committee to finalize this document, which will ultimately be incorporated into the request for proposal.